Why are you? It sounds like an absurd question at first, but sit with it for a moment. Why are you not a medieval king, a Chinese peasant, or Rachel from accounting? Your instinct might be to answer quickly, to say, because I was born in this body, because this brain has been running for 20, 30, 40 years, and what I experience now is simply the continuation of that process. But that answer doesn't really explain anything. There is no theory in neuroscience, or anywhere else, that explains why a single point of awareness is attached to this brain at this moment in time. In other words, there is no known reason why you are here, instead of somewhere else entirely. Tonight, on Dark Beacon, we're going to explore that question. Not as a puzzle to be solved, but as something stranger. A quiet crack in how we understand reality and ourselves. Most people never ask this question, and if they do, they tend to dismiss it almost immediately. Of course I'm me. Who else would I be? But that feeling of obviousness is doing more work than it should. It isn't an explanation, it's a reflex. We're used to answering questions about identity. What's your name? Where were you born? How old are you? Those answers feel solid, grounded, factual. But none of them touch the real mystery. They tell a story about the body, about history, about continuity. They don't explain why awareness itself is happening there, instead of somewhere else. Imagine waking up tomorrow in a different life, a different body, different memories, a different name. From the inside, it would feel just as normal, just as obvious. Whoever you woke up as would feel like you. The sense of me would simply reattach. And that tells us something unsettling. The feeling of being you is not evidence that you had to be this person. It's just the feeling that comes from being conscious at all. The illusion isn't that the question is strange. The illusion is that the answer feels obvious. There is a class of facts that science struggles to talk about at all, not because they are rare or complex or hidden, but because they only exist from the inside. Words like here, now, me. These are called indexicals. They don't describe the world in general, they describe where you are within it. From the outside, the universe can be described completely without them. Every particle, every force, every equation. None of that requires a here, or a now, or a me. And yet, your experience is built entirely out of them. You are always here, always now, always someone. No physical theory tells you why this moment is now for you, rather than a moment 1,000 years ago. No equation explains why this location is here, rather than on the other side of the planet. And no scientific description explains why this point of view is yours. Even a perfect, godlike map of reality would still leave one fact out: the fact that this is where experience is happening. This is not a gap in our data, it's a gap in how explanations work. Science tells us what the universe is like from nowhere. Consciousness is what it's like from somewhere. And the mystery isn't that the universe exists, the mystery is that it exists from here. Now take that sense of here and now and stretch it across history. There have been around 100 billion humans who have ever lived. Most of them were born into lives of extreme hardship. Poverty, disease, violence, short lifespans. For most of human history, the average life looked nothing like yours. No electricity, no modern medicine, no education as we understand it, no leisure, no choice. Statistically speaking, if consciousness were assigned at random, you should almost certainly not be living this life. You should have been born centuries ago. You should have lived briefly. You should have struggled just to survive. And yet, here you are, alive at a moment when the universe is mapped in detail, when atoms and galaxies have names, when this very question can be asked at all. This is sometimes called the Chinese peasant problem, not because of anything special about China, but because for most of history, the most common human life was one of anonymity and struggle. From a purely numerical point of view, your position in time is wildly unlikely, and yet it feels completely normal. That's the strange part. Nothing about your experience carries a sense of improbability. From the inside, this life feels inevitable, unremarkable, simply how things are. But inevitability is not the same as explanation. The question isn't, why did this body exist? History can answer that. The question is why awareness finds itself attached to a life like this one, rather than one of the countless others it could have been. If consciousness had opened its eyes at any point in human history, it would have felt just as real, just as immediate, just as obvious. So why this one? Why now? Why here? At this point, it's tempting to turn to neuroscience for relief. After all, we know a great deal about the brain. We can map its regions, measure its signals, watch thoughts form in real time. We know that damage to certain areas alters personality, that memories depend on physical structures, that consciousness fades when the brain is disrupted. All of this is real, all of it matters, but none of it answers the question we're asking. Neuroscience explains how experiences are generated. It does not explain why experience is located where it is. It can tell you what happens when this brain thinks a thought. It cannot tell you why this thought is being experienced rather than an identical one in another brain somewhere else. Even in principle, a perfect brain scan would fall short. You could know everything about the neural activity in 1,000 minds, down to the smallest electrical fluctuation, and still not know which one is you. There is nothing in the data that marks a brain as the one that awareness will belong to. No label, no flag, no observable property. From the outside, all conscious brains look the same in this respect. From the inside, only one feels like home. This is not a failure of technology. It's not something we'll solve with better scanners or more powerful computers. The problem isn't hidden. It's that the question itself points somewhere science does not normally look. Not at processes, not at mechanisms, but at perspective.
Thanks a lot for watching so far. If this kind of question is something you enjoy sitting with, you can leave a like. It really does help. I always respond to comments. Now, let's continue.
We tend to imagine the self as something stable, a core, a center, a thing that persists as time passes. But when you look closely, that stability begins to dissolve. Your body has changed almost completely since childhood. Your memories fade, distort, or vanish. Your personality shifts with age, experience, and circumstance. The person you were 10 years ago does not think the same thoughts you think now, does not want the same things, does not react in the same way. And yet, you feel continuous. You feel like the same person. That feeling is powerful, but it may be misleading. What persists is not a single, unchanging self, but a chain of overlapping processes. Memories link to memories. Intentions flow into new intentions. Each moment hands something to the next. If you remove one link in that chain, a memory, a personality trait, a belief, the sense of me adjusts without protest. We already accept this in extreme cases. If someone loses their memories, we don't say a new consciousness has appeared. If someone's personality changes after injury, we don't say the old self has left. We say the person has changed, which suggests something important. personal identity may not be a single thing that moves through time. It may be more like a pattern, continuous but never identical to itself. And if that's true, then the question shifts. If there is no fixed self anchoring consciousness to this life, what exactly is it that is here right now? And why is this the place it finds itself? Most of us carry a picture of consciousness without ever examining it. It feels obvious. You are one mind, inside one body, living one life. Your awareness began when you were born. It will end when you die. Everything in between belongs to you, and only you. Philosophers sometimes call this view closed individualism, the idea that consciousness is fundamentally private, that each person owns their own inner world, that there are as many consciousnesses as there are people. This way of thinking feels so natural that questioning it can sound absurd. Of course there are separate minds. Of course your experience is yours, and mine is mine. But notice something important. Closed individualism doesn't actually answer the question we started with. It assumes that consciousness is attached to individuals, but it never explains why this individual is the one you experience. Under this view, the fact that you are you is not explained at all. It's treated as a brute fact. No reason, no mechanism, no deeper story. You just happen to wake up as this person rather than another. And once you see that, the sense of obviousness begins to crack. Closed individualism tells us what consciousness is attached to. It does not tell us why awareness finds itself here instead of anywhere else. It explains continuity. It explains separation. But it offers no answer to the strangest part of all. Why this life feels like home. Why this body is the one looking out. Why this point of view is the one that exists for you. If this model is correct, then the most intimate fact of your existence, that you are you, has no explanation at all. It just is. And that may be true, but it is not satisfying. And it is not the only way to think about consciousness. There is another way to think about consciousness, one that feels strange at first, not because it's complicated, but because it rearranges something we rarely question. Instead of many separate consciousnesses, imagine that there is only one. Not one mind that knows everything, not a cosmic intelligence, just one subject of experience, living every life from the inside, one at a time. In this view, individuals still exist, bodies exist, brains exist, personalities exist. What changes is not the world, but what we think consciousness is doing within it. Awareness doesn't belong to a person. A person is something awareness passes through. You are not a private observer sealed inside a skull. You are the current location of experience itself. This doesn't mean you remember other lives. It doesn't mean you are secretly everyone. Memory stays local. Personality stays local. History stays local. Only the point of view moves on. From this perspective, the original question begins to soften. Why are you you? Because awareness is always somewhere, and right now, this is where it is. There is no lottery being won, no selection being made, just the next experience in sequence. When one life ends, experience doesn't disappear. It simply stops happening there and begins happening somewhere else. Not reincarnation, not survival, just continuity without identity. The unsettling part isn't that this view is strange, it's that it quietly answers the question that nothing else seems able to. Why this life feels inevitable. Why being you feels unavoidable. Why there is always a me wherever experience occurs. Because there is only ever one place experience can be. Here. If something like this were true, it wouldn't just be a curiosity. It would change how the world looks from the inside. Harm would stop being abstract. The suffering of others would no longer belong to someone else in the deepest sense. It would be suffering experienced elsewhere, in the same way this life is experienced here. Kindness would no longer be a moral rule handed down from culture or religion. It would become a kind of foresight, a recognition that whatever pain is inflicted outward is pain waiting its turn. And yet, this idea doesn't need to be true to have weight. Even as a possibility, it destabilizes the sharp boundary we draw between self and other. It reminds us how thin that line really is. Every conscious life feels just as real from the inside as this one does. Every fear, every hope, every moment of joy or despair. The universe does not mark one perspective as special. Only the one you are in feels that way. No experiment can resolve this. No scan can point to the place where you-ness lives. No equation can tell you why this moment is yours. And yet, the question never goes away, because it is not a problem about knowledge. It is a problem about position, about the fact that the universe is not just something that exists, it is something that is experienced, always from somewhere, always from someone. Science can tell us what the world is made of. It can tell us how minds work, but it cannot tell us why there is a viewpoint at all, or why it is here rather than anywhere else. That may be a limitation of our tools, or it may be a clue, a sign that consciousness is not just another object in the universe, but a way the universe appears to itself. So, why are you, you? Right now, awareness is here, reading these words, hearing this voice, occupying this moment. In a moment, the thought will pass. Another will take its place. Experience will continue, as it always does. The universe contains countless lives, but only one of them is this one. And for reasons we do not understand, this is where experience is happening right now. That is not a problem to be solved. It is a fact to be noticed. And once you notice it, it becomes very difficult to unsee. If some of the ideas we've explored in this video are even partly true, then they lead to conclusions that are both unsettling and quietly liberating. Every act of kindness becomes a kindness extended to yourself, and every cruelty we inflict becomes suffering we may ultimately be waiting to experience. Whatever the true answer to these questions turns out to be, it leaves us with a quiet suggestion that it may be better to be kind. See you next time.